Good afternoon. Welcome to Inner City Law Center's 17th Annual Awards Luncheon. I'm Janet Combs, and with me is Marshall Camp, and we're so pleased that you can join us today to celebrate the work of Inner City Law Center and to honor our awardees who have distinguished themselves through their commitment to charitable and pro bono service.
We'd like to start by thanking some of you who make the work of Inner City Law Center possible. I would ask the 33 members of the Inner City Board of Directors, the 11 members of our Board of Advisors, and the 22 members of the this year's Luncheon Committee to please stand so that we can recognize and applaud your efforts.
We also are very grateful for all of our sponsors today, for your financial support and for your commitment to the mission of Inner City Law Center. Thank you.
And most importantly, we want to recognize and thank everyone who has supported not just this event, but the Inner City Law Center, both financially and with pro bono assistance. You answer the call whenever the call goes out, and thanks to you, Inner City today serves far more clients than it has at any point in its 37-year history, so thank you all.
Today we honor a couple who have been lifelong advocates for disadvantaged Americans. We also honor one of California's leading providers of private dispute resolution services.
Marion Wright and Peter Edelman embody the founding principle of Inner City Law Center that everyone should always be treated with dignity and with respect. They've been advocates for disadvantaged Americans for their entire professional lives. As the founder and director of the Children's Defense Fund, and as the founder and director of the Center on Poverty and Inequality at Georgetown University Law Center, they have demonstrated a deep commitment to providing legal representation for those who cannot afford it. Thank you, the Edelmans.
Yes. We also honor Judicate West and Var Fox for their exemplary leadership in corporate social responsibility and also for their efforts to improve the justice system by working with the most vulnerable in our community. Thank you, Judicate West and Var Fox.
The money raised at this event allows Inner City to combat slum housing and develop strategies to end homelessness. Today's luncheon, we're very pleased to announce, has already raised $750,000 in pledges and cash. That's great. But we're not done yet. Our goal is $900,000, and you're going to help us reach that goal a little bit later today to support the work and programs that you'll hear about.
These resources are more critical than ever. Homelessness in Los Angeles is at an unprecedented level, increasing last year at a staggering 23%.
Inner City Law Center is expanding services to address this crisis. If you look at the centerpieces on your tables, you'll see that Inner City Law Center has launched 5 new projects just this year. Now's the time for all of us to redouble our efforts to have a larger impact than we've ever had before. We all need to think big. We need to achieve the kind of city here in Los Angeles that we truly want and can be proud of. That is what your continued support will allow Inner City to do.
And now, we're very pleased to have with us today the man who led the charge on Measure H, a man who time and time again has shown his deep commitment to those living on our streets. He's here today to present ICLC's 2017 Catherine Krause Award. Please join me in welcoming to the stage LA County Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. Why don't we give another round of applause to both Janet and Marshall for their introductory remarks. Give them a... It's my distinct pleasure to support and partner with this organization, the only one of its kind to provide legal services on Skid Row for nearly 4 decades. The Inner City Law Center helped this county pass Measure H, the historic sales tax increase approved by nearly 70% of the voters in March of this year. 70% of the voters in March of this year. Historically relevant, it is the first time since the year of 1902 that a revenue enhancement measure was placed on a County of Los Angeles ballot in March, on an off year. I did say 1902. I was here then. I was around and I was upright. And the point to be made, it expresses the intensity, the profundity of the sentiment that voters have about this issue. And at the center of that advocacy, there stood Inner City Law Center, participated in the planning process for Measure H in terms of the review planning group, and we're pleased that we came forth with a spending plan that was unanimously approved by the board this past Tuesday. So we're getting ready to put that $1 billion into work to end homelessness in the county of Los Angeles. And if you believe that, you ought to clap your hands and make it clear that it's time to end homelessness in our county. So from organizing tenants, living in substandard conditions, to advocating for public benefits for low-income individuals, this organization truly fights for the vulnerable among us. If I were to speak in biblical language, we would describe them as the least of these. This organization stands up for them and speaks truth to power and says that there is dignity, purpose, and worth in every single human being, for which we should fight and continue to fight to the bitter end. So we give a big shout out to the Inner City Law Center for what it has done, what it's doing right now, and what it will do well into the future. Give them another big round of applause. They're smart. They know how to get it right. And if nothing else is more clear, it ought to be clear by those who they have chosen to recognize today. There's a little effort known as Freedom Schools. One of our honorees is principally responsible for it, and I won't get into all of the historical detail, but the kids had to be taken care of in the face of nonviolent direct action at the height of struggle in the South. And so they were taken care of in the context of freedom schools. Well, those freedom schools are alive and well throughout the length and breadth of the United States. There are approximately 10 right here in the county of Los Angeles. And when they convene in the morning, this is all about literacy, largely for elementary age children. The point to be made is we had what was called homeroom when we were assembled. How many of you remember homeroom? Yeah, I know you do. You don't be afraid to identify that you know what homeroom is. You know what homeroom was, even if you were coming up in the 70s, the 80s, and the like. They call it now Harambe in the Freedom School context. So they give affirmation, encouraging self-esteem, and the like. And the way in which that is done is the servant leader intern, or the leader in the context, will shout out, "I have a recognition." That's what I'm trying to say right there. Say, "I have a recognition," and the whole classroom says, "Recognize." Well, this is a freedom school assembled here today. And I just want to say to you, I have a recognition. I said I have a recognition. I want to recognize with you Marion Wright Edelman and Peter B. Edelman, and give them a big round of applause because they are in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, they represent a dynamic partnership founded on shared commitment to public service and servant leadership. A graduate of Yale Law School, prior to that, a graduate of Spelman College. The name Marion Wright Edelman was first seared into our consciousness as the first African-American woman admitted to the Mississippi bar, and she hasn't turned back since. She also worked alongside the late Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. at the Poor People's Campaign, and was an organizer at Head Start. And I should say to you, it was in 1973 that Marion founded the Children's Defense Fund, the nation's premier child advocacy organization dedicated to providing a voice for all children, particularly those who are vulnerable. Shall I say her leadership has resulted in opening up access for millions of children to early education, health care, and poverty reduction opportunities, as well as improved treatment within the child welfare and juvenile justice systems. It's through the Children's Defense Fund that she has created Freedom Schools, an innovative program focused on addressing summer learning loss and cultivating a love of reading. It's all about literacy. And we have sponsored those schools in our county, and we've collaborated with a number of you in doing so. We've even moved them into probation camps. And the transformative implications that have been made resident in that space is quite powerful. The probation officers have said, we didn't know these youngsters could even smile, but when they read, something goes on. Mr. City Attorney, something goes on when they read. Those defense mechanisms of being hard peel back, and a whole new person emerges. Reading matters, and Freedom Schools have done that. So we thank Marion Wright Edelman for that and more. Peter Edelman is a longtime champion of civil and human rights with an impressive list of achievements, and those who are students of law and history and government have paid close attention to his work for many, many years. A graduate of Harvard Law School and is the Carmark Waterhouse Professor of Law and Public Policy at Georgetown Law School. He's also the founder and the faculty director of Georgetown's Center on Poverty and Inequality. Peter has worked in all three branches of government, that is the federal government, clerking for the Supreme Court, working for Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and serving as an Assistant Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. In other words, Peter got it like that. You know what I mean. Marion and Peter are, among many other things, parents of Joshua, Jonah, and Ezra. And it's well worth knowing that next year, Peter and Marion will celebrate 50 years of marriage, a half-century mark of marriage. Peter and I don't know which one of the two deserves a medal, but they've been hanging in there. In my case, give my wife the medal. Both Avis and I are blessed by the friendship of Peter and Marion. I cannot think of two people more deserving of an award centered on public service to vulnerable clients and communities. My life has been enriched by the association that I have with them both, intellectually, spiritually, politically, culturally. They are simply exceptional. Carol Biondi did me a solid by introducing me to Marion Wright Edelman 8 years ago or more when I was running for this position. And Marion and I haven't looked back. The only question she posed is, why hadn't I known you before now? We have so much in common. Well, the Lord works in mysterious ways and wonders to perform. And so Peter and Marion, come on up here as we recognize you and give you all that you deserve and more. The one and only Marion and Peter Edelman, ladies and gentlemen, show them your love.
Thank you. I obviously love him. He is not on the take. He's wonderful. He's been one of the most important people in moving the children's cause forward, and I'm just deeply grateful. And I want to give a shout out to my board member, Carol Biondi. If we had a pit bull like her all over the country, we wouldn't have any more trouble for children. I mean, she's been wonderful. But thank you. I can't think of another group I'd rather be honored by, and I just want to thank you so much for your important work. And I'm just grateful to be able to be here with Peter and with you and to say thank you and to say let's keep at it. We're going to end homelessness. We're going to end child poverty and poverty in this rich nation in our lifetime. Let's give it 5 more years, okay? I've had the blessing of having the best role models in the world. And people often ask, why do I do what I do? I say I do because I do exactly what my parents did. I do exactly what the great mentors in my life, or I call them lanterns, did. And one of them was Sam DeWitt Proctor, who was a great preacher at Abyssinian Baptist Church, a Peace Corps leader, a president of a black college. And Sam, when he opened up Children's Defense Fund's Haley Farm, movement building center is what it really is, talked about the scratch line, and that's the work of this group here. He says we do not all start at the same scratch line, although there's one original position hypothetically for everybody. All of us were born here owning nothing, having earned nothing, just born. There you were helpless, you were indebted to everybody. But some of us opened our eyes and saw nothing but blessings dumping on us. I opened my eyes, and there was my parents, Herbert and Thelma, and my grandma Hattie, a slave smiling on me. How in the world could I lose? Taught me how to read and play 4-part harmony before I got to school. taught me how to play the clarinet and piano, and made me go to Sunday school. And Daddy didn't send us, Daddy took us. If there was nobody in that Sunday school but one person, that would have been my daddy with his 6 little children at the Bank Street Baptist Church. That's what I inherited, didn't earn it. You can't get that with a Visa card. It was given to me. Now, all through my neighborhood, there were other young fellows. Daddies were not there half the time, didn't read in their homes. Nobody went to Sunday school, none of that. They started life below the scratch line. I started life way above the scratch line. And everywhere I went, someone said, "Aren't you Miss Hattie's grandson? Aren't you Herbert's boy?" Everything smiling on me. Finished high school at 15. Went to college on a scholarship. None of that did I deserve. Hadn't earned any of it. I started out with a head of steam. My parents gave all of that to us in great abundance, and my buddies up the street had none of that. Now, if we want these bones to live again in America, those of us who have inherited benefits that we did not earn or deserve need to turn around and help those who inherited deficits that they did not earn or deserve, and help them to rise up to the scratch line where we are, so that they may earn and enjoy all the benefits that we so take for granted. Can these bones live again? Sam Proctor asked. Yes, he said, these bones can live. And these bones will live again for all of us with the work of groups like this. And I cannot thank you enough. And to say you're doing God's work, but you're also trying to do good work to save America's soul. We are going to have no future if we continue to let 14.5 million children live in poverty, go homeless, be outside of our community. And so the greatest national security problem we face is not from some external enemy. It's from our failure to invest in and educate and keep safe all of our children, and to give them the kind of support that many of us were blessed to have. And so I just hope that you understand the importance and you just give generously. They do what they do extremely well. And I just found a former CDF intern here working to help veterans in this wonderful group. But you're doing the Lord's work. And I just thank you, and I'm glad you're out of here. And I just want to say a very brief, small prayer. Because we're at one of the most dangerous times we've ever been into this nation. You better wake up. We're about to lose 50 years of progress. Everything that we have worked for, 95% coverage now through Medicaid and CHIP and the ACA of our children, all on the chopping block as they sort of draft a new stealth bill in the Senate to sort of combine with a bad health bill that's come out through the House. Wake up. Do not let them take away that hard-earned progress, take away the food and the housing and the clothing and the hope and the education and the early childhood, because they really are trying to redefine what it means to be an American. So I just hope we'll pay a lot of attention. And I hope somehow that God will forgive us and transform our rich nation, where we still let small babies die of cold quite legally. I won't even repeat the scenes I have seen of baby strollers in the snow, on the outside, on steps outside of churches, on Park Avenue in New York City. God, forgive and transform our rich nation and this county and city, where small children still suffer from hunger and homelessness quite legally, which is being combated by this wonderful group. Oh God, forgive and transform our nations where toddlers and school children and all of us, their parents, die from guns, sold quite legally. We need to stop the gun violence in this country. It's obscene, and we need to stand up and say we're going to end the killing of children and end the killing of everybody in this country. And I hope we'll do that. Oh, God will forgive and transform our rich nation that lets the rich continue to get more at the expense of the poor quite legally. And what we don't need to do is to destroy the safety net in order to give more tax cuts to those who have too much already. What kind of country takes from those who have nothing and who are hungry and who are homeless to give more tax cuts to people at a time when our gap between rich and poor is at its highest? Stand up and do whatever you have to do to say no and not let that go forward. I also hope that you will pray and act to transform our rich and powerful nation, which thinks security rests in missiles and bombs rather than mothers and babies and strong families and educated workers. God, forgive our rich nation for not giving you sufficient thanks by giving to all others a daily bread. So I hope we will begin to get clear and never be confused that what is quite legal may not be what is just and right in God's sight. It's time for us to live our creed that all men and women and children are created equal, that everybody's entitled to hope and to a decent life. That is what this group is about. That's what the Children's Defense Fund is about. That's what your presence here and support here today is about. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this award. Thank you.
So what do I say now? Yeah. Well, one thing I will say, and it can't be said too much, is the Inner City Law Center is pretty darn fantastic. Homelessness in our country and in Los Angeles, we know, is a measure of our society, and we don't measure up so well. But we're here today about Inner City Law Center because it fights back and it makes a huge difference, and we can see with what Inner City has done and contributed to with what has been happening recently in the county and the city, which gives us hope and optimism about where we're going to go. And all of you are making an enormous difference because you're supporting this. And one thing I can say that can't be said too much is give more. We need these kinds of fierce advocates for effective public policy everywhere. And Inner City Law Center, I'm sure you know, it's really a model for the entire country. People look to the work of the Inner City Law Center. I want to say just a couple things. One is to be personal, because this terrible time that we're through, we know we can do better. And Marion and I met in Mississippi in 1967, and we know what happened personally about that. It's pretty good, pretty fantastic. And all those sons and grandchildren and all of that. But that was the day when Robert Kennedy and Marion and I and others saw children in our country who were suffering from severe malnutrition. And the result of that over a period of time was the creation of the National Food Stamp, SNAP, program that we have. And we don't have that kind of hunger. We have too much poverty, but we don't have the same kind of hunger now that we had then. And it's important to understand, and it relates to what we need to be doing right now to fight back. That was always a program that was supported by people on both sides of the aisle. Richard Nixon, not Lyndon Johnson, sent the first message to Congress to create a national food stamp program. Bob Dole, George W. Bush, yes, have kept this a bipartisan program until now. And it needs to remind those people that this is something that has always, until this moment, has been supported by everybody across all of the lines, and we can't say it too often. We need to do more than that. We need to do more than fighting back. We do need to find the ways to do the work about what we need to do, not just to defend what we have, which we have to do, but to figure out what specifically we're going to do to say to the American people about ending poverty. How do we do that? What do we do, and how do we get it done? And now particularly, with the elections results that happened last year, we saw something that's very important to the future of ending poverty in our country, and that is the young people of our country. They are looking for real answers. We will lose the opportunity that we have right now to put this to the American people if we do not lay out the real problems, and if we don't say, and we have to say, clearly and honestly what it will take to solve those problems so that everyone will know, and so that it is not enough to fight back. We really, really have to figure out how we get the job done to end poverty, as Marion already said, in our country. So John Lewis always says, our friend always says, get in the way. Get in the way, he says. Make good trouble, he says. And he's right. But we have to do more than that, because it isn't only about making good trouble, it's about making the path to end poverty in our country. I always end talks by quoting Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, Dr. King's close friend. And as we know, he wrote many long, important books. But what he said that I want to share could be a tweet. Those are big right now. He said, "We're not all guilty, but we are all responsible." Thank you so much for honoring us. We feel honored by this.
Good afternoon. My name is Adam Murray. I have the privilege and honor of being the Executive Director of Inner City Law Center. These are challenging times to be poor in America. We have an administration in Washington, D.C. that believes that poverty is a state of mind, that believes that the poor should reach down and pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and believes that being poor is the result of individual moral failures. I, too, believe that poverty is the result of moral failures. I believe that it's a moral failure that our children in the foster care system age out of foster care and into homelessness. I believe it is a moral failing that so many of our elders with serious mental health issues are living on the streets of Skid Row. I believe it is a moral failing that 58,000 people, 58,000 human beings tonight will be homeless in LA County. But these are our collective moral failings. As Robert F. Kennedy once said, to paraphrase Robert F. Kennedy, poverty in the face of plenty is evil. Here in Los Angeles, over the past year, as you heard from some of our prior speakers, we have been stepping up to the plate in various ways. It is very promising that Measures H and Measures HHH have passed in the last year. They will make an enormous difference providing housing and services for many of our neighbors who are homeless and living on our streets or living in our shelters. But what they won't do is sufficiently address the vast influx of people who are living just one thing going wrong away from homelessness. In Los Angeles County, 10,000 people become homeless every month. Let me say that number again because it's really staggering. More than 10,000 people become homeless in LA County every month. And we have to do more to address that. That is the next step of what we need to do. We need to figure out how we have much more affordable housing and how we have a much more robust safety net for people who are living, families and individuals who are living on the cusp of being homeless. Now, we're not going to get help, much help these days from the federal government for this effort. As you've heard, they're very interested in cutting Medicaid, food stamps, Section 8, just about every aspect of our already tattered safety net. So we are going to have to do it locally, here in California, here in Los Angeles, and here in this room. I'm also pleased to say that at times like this, when it's especially important that organizations like Inner City Law Center step up, we are doing just that. As you saw a moment ago in the video, this year we are adding 17 new staff at Inner City Law Center. It's an increase of 35%. It's a huge jump, and it's going to enable us to serve far more folks. We're expanding, we've already expanded in the first part of this year 3 projects. One that's providing much greater scale of support for people who are living on the streets and trying to access disability benefits. A second that is working with residents of Skid Row whose housing instability, either where they're living on the streets or in SRO hotels, is tied to their pets. and a third that is expanding our work working with low-income families countywide who are in danger of becoming homeless. We have 2 more projects that we're launching later in this year. One is a medical legal partnership in Long Beach focused on helping homeless women veterans connect with VA benefits. And another is a new project called Homeful.LA that is an effort to encourage people to engage through volunteering, through donating, and through advocacy with ending homelessness here in Los Angeles. In your tribute books, you should have a magnet that we're hoping you'll take with you for Homeful LA. The website will launch in July. And our hope is that by taking this magnet, you'll remember to come back and sign up and encourage others to get involved as well. All of these efforts, none of these efforts we're doing by ourselves. All of them involve many other nonprofits, government partners, funders, and pro bono support. In the past 2 years, thanks to many of you in this room, Inner-City Law Center has managed to leverage over $26 million in pro bono support, providing free services to our clients on top of what our staff does day in and day out. Now, most of these projects that I've just talked about are funded, and thanks to many of you in this room who have helped make that possible. But there is one aspect of our work that we are already engaging in that we need your help with. We have seen since November a substantial increase in the number of landlords who are threatening tenants because of their immigration status. Just about 2 weeks ago, we had a family walk into our office, young couple, early 20s. They have a daughter who's about a year and a half. They were living in South LA in an illegally converted garage. And they were cited by the city, or the landlord was cited by the city, that they had to stop renting out this unit. Appropriately so. It was quite unsafe place. But what should happen then is the landlord should have to pay relocation benefits. That's what's required by the law in order to move these tenants someplace else. The landlord didn't want to do that, so instead they filed a UD, which they conveniently forgot to serve on the tenants. Instead, they sent the tenants a letter, very short letter, that basically said, you have to get out, and then it CC'd 2 local law enforcement agencies and the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement on the letter. This is a family where the mother and daughter are documented, but the father is not, and so they came into our office saying, what are our options? What can we do? We are adding an attorney to our litigation team to be able to address issues just like these, and we need your help today in order to fund that position. So this is where I turn to you. This is, by many measures, the funnest part. It's certainly the most interactive part of the program. It's the funnest part for me, at least. Maybe, Harry, can we pull up on the screen some information here about texting to give? So in your tribute books on your table are envelopes, and we will welcome any support that you can provide with a check, and you can give it to anybody who's a board member. You'll see their name tags, or a staff member or committee member. We also have the option for you to text your commitment by texting on your cell phone, and feel free, this is the point where you can feel free to pull out your cell phone and send the text and then check your messages. But the text is going to 41444, and you put in ICLC space and then the dollar amount you'd like to commit to giving. And you should feel free to add a message. You can add your name, you can call somebody out, you can make fun of somebody, whatever you want to do. So do we have, Harry, can you throw up the thermometer so we can see how we're doing? In order to fund this position, we need to raise $50,000. So please, whatever you can do would be very much appreciated. I know that many of you today have already given very generously to support our work and everything that goes on at Inner-City Law Center. But I really do, as I said earlier, my kids are here, thank you. As I said earlier, this is a time that calls for Inner-City Law Center to do more, and we can't do it unless all of you also join us in doing more. So please, even if you've already given, please do what you can. Please be as generous as you possibly can, because now is the time that we have to step up locally if we're going to make a difference on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you to all the texters so far. If you need help figuring out how to text, just ask the person next to you. Marshall, how do we do it? Tell me how to do it.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Janet. So in every program, there is a magnet. By the way, you've now heard from Mark Ridley Thomas, Marion Edelman, Peter Edelman, Adam Murray. if you are not stirred to action right now, you are incapable of being stirred, I think. Now's your opportunity. We can make a difference together here in this room today. We can create, there we go. Interns who love chicken, all right, right on.
That works. MTO rocks.
MTO does rock.
Yes.
I summered there. Yes, well, we can today create the position that Adam described. It is a critical position. So the card's in your program, pull it out. As Adam said, you just text 41444 as the number. You enter ICLC, space, amount, space, and the name and message, and you're done, and then you'll get a message about filling in the credit card information. But let's get it done. We do love Janet Combs. Agreed. Some of you will have to swipe past other apps to get to text messaging. I know some people may be tweeting. Tinder, I don't know, people on Tinder. Got to get past that, get to the text message, send it in right now.
If you can't give today, there's always opportunities to give later. We have a website, you can donate there. We have envelopes. As Marshall said, you can send in your donation. Every dollar counts. Even if you've given before, every dollar counts. And it takes sustained and vigilant support to attack the issues we have. So keep them coming, guys.
I don't think you're dumbling that.
Bar,
You know, $50,000 may sound like a lot of money. Let me put a finer point on how your money makes a difference here today. The cost for Intercity to defend a single eviction defense case is about $250. $250 keeps a family in their house. $250 ensures that a mom and her daughter are not looking for housing. That's a pretty powerful thing that you can do right here today.
We'll take it. Fantastic. Keep them coming
Please
throughout
keep them
the
coming,
program.
and
Thank
we'll
you.
keep updating the thermometer.
Very,
Thank you.
yes.
I'm Andy Espenshade, the president of the board of directors of Intercity Law Center. We're running a little bit on the late side, so I'm going to be very brief, but there are a couple things I really need to recognize. First, Janet Combs and Marshall Camp have done an amazing job. Their tireless efforts have really led us to over 750,000, hopefully headed towards 800,000, and we really appreciate it. Probably most importantly, all the work that you saw in the video, all the work that Adam described is due to Intercity Law Center's staff. I'd like to ask them to stand. The lawyers, paralegals, tenant advocates, policy experts, and everyone else that makes up the ICLC team are really what has brought all of us here today and what leads us to continue to support this organization and to do the great work it does. So thank you and keep it up. I'd like to ask Dan Woods, a member of the board and past president, to come up and join me for a quick announcement.
Thank you, Andy, and welcome everyone. The Board of Directors of Intercity did not want to let a momentous occasion pass without recognition today. Adam Murray, would you please stand up? Adam Murray, the executive director of the Intercity Law Center, recently celebrated his 10th anniversary in that position. that sort of longevity is rare in this day and age, and especially true in the nonprofit world. And I and the other board members can assure you that he hasn't stayed in the job that long because of a gigantic salary, huge bonuses, or stock options. Adam has stayed in this position for 10 years because he truly loves his job and loves the work of Inner City Law Center. Under Adam's leadership, Inner City Law Center has grown tremendously. Just to give you a few numbers, 10 years ago, the staff at Inner City included 5 lawyers and a total of 19 staff members. Today, Inner City has 23 lawyers and 42 staff members. 10 years ago, the budget of Inner City Law Center was an annual budget of $1.3 million. Today, the annual budget is over $4.5 million. 10 years ago, this luncheon event had far fewer guests and raised $131,000. Today, with all of your help, we hope to raise $900,000. This is the result of Adam's work. No one else did this. While a lot of people contributed more than anyone else, this is the result of 10 years of work at the Inner City Law Center by Adam Murray. So would you all please now stand with me and join me in thanking and recognizing Adam Murray.
Thank you, and thank you to Dan and to Adam. I now want to introduce Assistant Presiding Judge of the Los Angeles Superior Court, the Honorable Kevin Brazil, who will be introducing our second honoree.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it is really a pleasure to be here. And I just want to thank the Inner City Law Center for everything that you've done, for all your outstanding work, and for the honorees. I would also like to give my congratulations to Marion Wright Edelman and Peter Edelman for the Catherine Cross Award. Your talk today was so very inspiring to me, and thank you for everything that you've done. Now it gives me great pleasure to talk about my friend Var Fox. And to me, you know, he's just a tremendous person. As you know, he's the Executive Vice President and co-founder of Judicate West. And he's also a friend to many of you here. Var really embodies the meaning of giving back and caring about others who are less fortunate. He loves our community, he does for our community. And the one thing I've known about Var for many years is that he's a man of strong faith. And he's always there for you. He's someone that you can always rely upon. During the time that I've known him, I've witnessed his unwavering dedication to his clients, to veterans, some of whom are here today, and to the community in which he serves. Var is always looking for and finding ways to give back to our community. He's a true inspiration to many, and someone that I personally have deep admiration for. With over 20 years of experience in the ADR industry, Var brings with him a wealth of knowledge and breadth of understanding that is so valuable to his clients and colleagues. As I said before, he's co-founder of Judicate West, which is one of the premier and most well-respected ADR service providers in the state of